This video is only going to be relevant really to people who have followed my journey because it's really just me being transparent. In some ways, I don't even need to do the video, but I've spoken an awful lot about the struggles I've been through, especially financially, over the past few years. And it's been intermittent throughout life, but over the past year or so, it's been really, really heavy. And I just want to show people really that anything can happen at any moment, and we're never defined by a circumstance because anything can improve. So a lot of the time, people would judge you, and they pigeonhole you at one thing. But like I say, if anything can change at any moment, then really the defining characteristic is who we are at our core, not what we have, because the things we have can come and go. But it's who are we, you know? Um, so yeah, whilst finances have been tight, like it's been really hard. The circumstances may be changing, but I'm not, nothing set in stone yet. But I have been making forward action, and an opportunity come literally today, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll consider this. I'll look into it. It's not to do with my main path. I'd love nothing more than to be able to make a living off of the other side to what I do, which I feel thoroughly deserves to be rewarded, to be totally honest, because I've sacrificed a lot for a very long time, little to no gain at all financially. So I'm having to sort of balance two worlds at the same time. I do sacrifice a lot, hence the struggles. But there's also a desire within myself to have nice things, to have good experiences, and so sometimes you have to sort of like go forward, and all sorts of things. So I've been looking back into warehousing, forklift work, because it pays the bills, and it can give you some stability. And if I can find a good balance of it, then fine. But like I said, it is beneath me on a lot of levels because I've grown past it so much. But it is what it is. So I'd applied for a couple of jobs, and then all of a sudden, one that I had spoke to a month or so ago, there was back and forward in, but they were just dragging all the time, and it was just, I don't know, it just didn't manifest. It didn't work out. It didn't happen. And they were really hard to get in touch with. But anyway, out of the blue, like literally out of the blue, I've got a text message come through, and then an email from the person who deals with the hiring side. So it was quite evident they'd reached out to me personally, which was good because it meant I didn't have to go through a whole application process. It's a permanent role, which is useful because, of course, that means you get holiday allowance, you get your holidays paid for. That's a big plus. You got stability. So anyway, so that's doing a reach forklift. I've done all sorts. I've done counterbalance, reach, bendy, which is the same as a flexi truck, side loader, forks, clamps, all different styles of sizes and all sorts of things, But I actually started my forklift experience. My very first forklift was a reach truck. I actually really enjoy using them. So yeah, there's a chance that it's a 4 on 4 off, so it's 12-hour shifts, and I don't know how well I'll do with 12-hour shifts, but unless you give it a go, you're not really going to know. But yeah, that would potentially derail other sides to what I'm doing. But if the breakthroughs don't come, what can you do? You can't just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and suffering forever. I've given enough time to what I do. I'll still do what I can when I feel the urge, but because it's 4 on 4 off anyway, so there's days when I'm available. If this works out, so effectively in a week's time, I'm going to be like an induction, but it's really an assessment on the forklift just to see how I get on, show me around. Hopefully it works out because, to be honest, the pay is pretty impressive. There's always going to be someone that's snooty and looks up and looks down and says, "Oh, that's terrible money." It's because other people have privilege. Some people are you're used to having high incomes. Some of us aren't. So, for instance, when you look at like logistics in general, there's not a huge disparity in the wages. It's usually quite low. It's like a mid tier, but some places just pay really well with overtime, things like that. So the job I left a year and a half ago, they're hiring again. I saw the advertisement. I didn't apply. I don't want to be back there. But I saw the job advert and it was £31,000 a year. So I thought it hasn't really gone up a lot since I was there. When I was there, I think it was 29. I think it was on 29. I can't remember. I think it was around about 29. So it hasn't really gone up that much, but it's still a decent wage considering, other jobs can fluctuate between like 26 up to about £32,000 a year. But bear in mind, when I was on about 28, I was doing fine. You know, my rent isn't high. I've got a 2-bedroom house. It's a very, very low price. So I'm very fortunate in that sense. So on that salary, I can sustain myself quite comfortably. I can pay my bills. I can still afford some nice things. It's a decent life. But this other one, the one where I've got in a week, it actually pays more. To my surprise, it pays more. So that one was £31,000 a year. This other one is. This is what I'm saying. I'm being transparent, but this is going to be probably the last of me talking about finances with people. I think I've shared enough of that. People can see that through my journey. They don't need to know my income and expenditures and all sorts for the rest of my life. You know, I just do it I've done it purposely to show people that you can go from struggles to doing well. You know, everything's transitional. And I think it's really important that we see the lows and we see the highs to an extent, but then it's also important that we have a little bit of a privacy here and you just get on. So this is the thing, whether I end up taking the job and I do the job or whether I don't, I'm not going to keep broadcasting it. People can make assumptions, whatever they want after that. You know, in my life, no matter what I do with some people, they naturally just think you're failing. And it's kind of strange to me because it's like, I wasn't really failing at the last job I did and I was comfortable and I was self-sufficient. So there is that. So bear in mind, like I say, I'm not going to keep disclosing everything. This is just, I think it's important for transparency. There's no point in me saying about the struggles, and then when there's a potential breakthrough, I'm like, you don't reveal it, you know? So I'm just going to be transparent at this stage. So I've got a few little options open at the moment. Let me just see if we can get that up. Okay. So I did a little bit of maths. It's £16.10 an hour average. Well, I got in the form, what the thing I got, it said 42 and a half hours. Or was it 41 and a half hours? I think it was 41 and a half. I might have the salary wrong. It was 4. So the numbers are still high. It's still it's still a very nice salary if I've done the calculations correctly. So as you can see here, if I can get it over, I've done a calculation. It's £16.10 an hour, 41 and a half hours a week, because it's 4 on 4 off, but obviously that's the average. That's what they're classing as, and it's paid weekly, which is quite fortunate. And it's a permanent role, so it's nearly £35,000 a year, which for me that's incredible. Like I said, I was on 29 a year and a half ago, about 29. The new salary at that place is 31. This one's 35 nearly, so that would be nice. So just to go into the context of that, really, I mean, the numbers changed here, so we can put a different calculation in because the number's slightly different. So if I just take that number, put it into this take-home pay, we put the calculator back in. It's my tax code would be the basic one, so that's why I don't need to put anything in. I'll just leave it as. Oh, for God. Right, based on this one, let me just make sure the number's right. Again, this may be really ridiculously transparent, and this is on the basis that I end up getting the job. You know, I still have to pass a forklift thing and need to be shown around. But anyway, so what we got here is 2025 take home, which is obviously what we want. We don't need to know last year's take home, even though the numbers I think exactly the same. So your annual take home, which I think is irrelevant, but the monthly is what matters. So it's 2,378. Let me move that over. There you go. I think, yeah. So anyway, so monthly would be 2,380 nearly, which is really good considering that's just base salary. And then your weekly income is 550 nearly. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't be struggling on that. I'd be more than comfortable, more than capable of looking after myself. And like I say, you can see, I've always said that, like, anything could come up at any moment. People are quick to judge, but when things go well, obviously there's people that are skeptical, and it's like, well, it's not really for me to prove anything. I'm just showing the journey a little bit here. Now, to add to that, I have spoke quite a few times about the like visa requirements in the UK. Like, if you was to be with someone potentially from another country, what's the criteria to come here? And I've always said that's a bit of an issue because, like, I'm not saying specifically who I may or may end up in a relationship with, but let's say a situation was to happen where there's someone from another country and think, well, how is this going to work? Because the visa requirements are quite stringent in the UK. At least they've tried to make it, but I've been doing a little bit more research and it's not as high as I thought. So bear in mind, the base salary is nearly £35,000 a year, which is pretty nice if it works out. Of course, keep having to say that if it works out. If you do a little search here, oh, this bar is getting on my nerves. I was earning what's the spouse visa UK like? What's the requirement? So it is that the earnings need to be £29,000 a year. So then I went on the government's website as well, just to clarify. And what he's saying is, if you first applied as a partner before and you're extending, if you cannot, I don't know what all that is. But this bit here, if the total amount you need to earn based on, if you have children, for instance, it might be there's an extra income expected. But what they're saying is, if the total amount you need to earn based on your children would be more than £29,000, you only need to prove you make £29,000. So either way, you just need to be able to prove that you're making £29,000 a year. And of course, any offer letter that let's say this thing goes well and I get an offer letter, then there's the proof in itself is the fact that you've been given an offer letter that obviously proves the income is nearly £35,000 a year, which is above the threshold here. And when I did a little bit more research, apparently the government are looking into it and then potentially reducing it all the way down to about £24,000, I think. Whereas Conservative before were looking to increase it all the way up to about £38,000, which is really prohibitive to too many people. That's literally forcing people to be loveless, effectively. If you meet a partner abroad for whatever, and it's just forcing you to live apart just based on your finance. I think that's disgusting. So even £29,000, I think, is really high because there's people who don't make that, and you shouldn't be separated. But anyway, so they're looking to reduce it even further anyway. But what I'm saying here is that on the base of it, if I end up taking that role, I would be comfortable enough and I would meet the criteria for any potential visas, which would be useful. Now, I'm not saying that's specifically something that's happening in my life because who knows? You don't know where love takes you, relationships, opportunities. But anyway, really, yeah, I just thought I'd be transparent about that. Like whether I take the role, whether I don't take the role, whatever happens, I'm not going to keep discussing finances publicly with people. But I do think because I've been so open about it leading up to this, I think it's really important that, I clarify now as well, because this literally only just happened today. Like literally, I think about 2 or 3 days ago. So I had applied for about 3 different roles. They varied in wages and things. I think one didn't even have a wage. You're just assuming it'd be good. Similar hours and things like that. And then this one, just like I said, this one just popped up again, reached out to me directly. And I was interested before, and it was like a month or so ago. So yeah, it's like I say, things can turn around. It's quite crazy how things can change, isn't it? Like for me personally, my rent isn't expensive, so like I don't mind saying what my rent is. It's a 2-bedroom house and it's only £450 a month. So you do the maths. It's like if I'm taking home, or I think it's about £450, or does it work out about £98 a week? I think. But even let's say you did it weekly, for instance, you're only taking, even if you took £100 off that, you've still got £450, every week spare. Well, not spare because you've got other bills as well, but it's more than livable. And again, if you took it off that, you still got like £1,900. Do you know what I mean? So then you've got other bills. So I am just if it works out, I can sustain myself quite comfortably. I'll be able to save up and maybe pay towards a holiday if I want a holiday. I'll be able to have nice things. I'll be able to start saving, having money in the bank. It'd be nice to start improving my circumstance. But like I said, this whole video was really about transparency rather than being an in-depth video and be maybe inspiring to anyone in any way. Or maybe because sometimes you do that. You share and you don't realize the impact it has on people. And, maybe it means more to people than you think. So like me doing that, me talking about it and me demonstrating that, it might be interesting to people. I don't know. I just felt it was really important. I like I said, I validate because I don't like that ambiguity. I don't like that unknown, that bit where people have to sort of like fill in the gaps. It's like you can fill in the gaps to an extent, but I'd rather people had to the right information before they fill in gaps. But yeah, anything, like I say, I've always saying that anything can happen at any moment. People are always quick to judge. They're always quick to judge in a circumstance, and then they're soon jealous when you're improving. Like with me, the people always find criticism. Those closest to me, they'll always try and find something that's the, because it's their inadequacies, because they don't have that in them. Because I'm always forward, I'm always direct, I'm always making things happen. Other people who are stagnant don't like it. So they don't think it's possible. So they'll question, So let's say it does work out. That'd be nice, money-wise. And then, of course, books could sell at any point. Other things can happen. You never know. And all of a sudden, you've got multiple streams of income. That'd be really nice. So, yeah, anything can happen at any moment. But even with all that, people would still think, let's say life is elevating. People would still think he's always struggling because I struggle for a period of life. They'll always some people just naturally think you're forever struggling. And it's like, well, that was never the plan. It's not the plan to always struggle, is it? It's just sometimes it's a transition phase. And then we climb out of it. Now, that's not to say here or there whether it works out. I won't know. Just over a week's time. I've done the earliest date available, but that's the only date they had. The other good thing about that, to be totally honest, is I did say I've got a holiday. I've got like nearly 3 weeks with my daughter soon, and I don't know if that's a problem because if a start date happens soon, it's not long before I'm off again. And they were fine about it. I gave them the dates and they seemed fine with it. So whether I start before or after, that'll be their choice. Obviously, financially, it'd be ideal for me, but then at the same time, you lose a lot of holiday allowance. Swings and roundabouts. That's all hypotheticals, if and not. But, realistically, it'd be nice if I was just pursuing like what I'm great at. Like, I hate balancing two different worlds. I hate having to just keep doing things and you're not getting anywhere. So it's a bit annoying, isn't it? The thing I'm most passionate about doesn't get me anywhere. And it hasn't forever since I've started, to be totally honest. It's like quicksand. So the only way to make a sustainable income is to do something that you've done in the past, which kind of makes everything else pointless to a degree, doesn't it? Because there's a lot of time and energy, a lot of passion, a lot of sacrifice, like an immense amount of sacrifice to create what I've done. And yet there's been absolutely no reward from it. The views are really low. There's no money. It's cost me to create all this at the end of the day, with this setup. Not the thing. It doesn't cost me anything to make a book. That's all me. But if I'm going to do video content, for instance, it's cost me £180 for the microphone. It's cost me £100 for the mic arm. Yeah, there's cheaper ones, and I had a cheaper one before. This one just extends a bit more professional. And I like to have nice things. So I want a better setup. I'll keep doing that. Camera, just over £100. But the thing is, they're not like large sums. I'd say that's a good price. That's a good price. The audio interface where the microphone goes into is another £100 and something. It's not like heavy amounts of money, but when you're not even receiving anything, it's like it's going out. It's nothing's coming in. Where's the balance? So anyway, we'll see how everything plays out. Hopefully, I'm hoping that I turn up and I enjoy it and it's sustainable and it can help me because I don't want to struggle forever. But inevitably, though, there may be sacrifices along the way. Like I've always said that, like if I'm working, then the next book might get delayed slightly because I'm not a machine. I haven't had the determination to see it through at the moment. I keep thinking I'm going to do it tomorrow, but I keep putting it off. So I think there's a level of frustration deep inside of me, to be totally honest, that I haven't seen the success from the ones that exist. I really want people to read them before they read another one, So it's almost like this self-sabotage, I guess. But I do need to do it. It's just I realise how much effort it's going to take. And like I say, if something happens with this and then I'm working and things and, how much time do you have? Yeah, it's 4 on 4 off, but the days are really long when you do work. And maybe the first day off might just be recovering from the really long sessions you've been having, But anyway, well, let's see how it plays out. Like I say, there is a level of frustration in either way, to be totally honest, because it does seem like a lost cause sometimes. But then I get signs that it helps people, but then that makes me more proud. And I'm thinking, okay, because if things only help one person, for instance, and it has an impact on their life, then it's worth it, isn't it? Because the thing is, when you think about it, it's like, what value do you put on a life? I think we get so caught up in the reaching 100 people, reaching 1,000 people, reaching millions. It's like, ultimately, though, only each of the, like, each individual of those millions or those thousands or hundreds is made up of all those individual ones. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that. So I think as long as it's helping someone, that it was a worthwhile sacrifice to create. So if I can inspire people to live an authentic life, a life aligned with themselves, don't worry about other people's projections, it's set boundaries with people who don't invest in you, and realize that sometimes you're going to have really, really low moments. It's going to be a struggle. It's the sacrifice that it takes to get wherever you're going. But breakthroughs will happen here and there sporadically. And you can change your life around. And I think if I'm delivering that message and people get it, and I've shown it through so many different avenues and different ways with the content, then I think, it's like I say, it was worth creating. My life's harder than the average person because I make it harder than the average person. Let that be clear. Like, I'll walk away from this and I'll walk away from that. So I end up really in poverty. I end up in real hardships. But that's just because of the way that I'm wired. I'm not built like most people. I can't tolerate certain things. So, for instance, if I'm in a toxic environment, I don't have the capacity to stay there. Whereas maybe other people have slight different tolerances. So I'm not saying one way's good or bad, but inevitably we lose something. So, you can keep yourself in a toxic environment and it gives you financial stability and it gives you opportunity. And in your private time, of course, it's less stress at home. But it's also really, really demoralizing when you have to keep taking yourself to those places and just devaluing yourself, So that's something I just can't do. So I would rather just sacrifice and give myself my freedom. And it does come at a heavy cost, financially, of course. So I say, there's no right or wrong. It's just the way I'm just really built a different way to most people, and the fact that my values are what I hold dear, and I don't really budge on those values. So like I say, I've got no problems going back into a warehouse and doing those sort of jobs as long as it's a respectful environment, and they give you the tools to do the job and it's safe and all those different things. But I don't really know when I go there, but based on sort of the income and the fact that you do get 4 days off for every other 4 days, so even that's beneficial, because even if you was going to work, it maybe, no one's saying you're going to love it. You don't go to work to love it, do you? I mean, obviously, if you're doing something you love, then they say it's not really working. So that'd be nice if I can do that based on my other work. But if we're going to put ourselves in workplaces, I'm not saying I need to go there and love it, but I need to go there and it's not destroying me mentally. It's just not weighing me down in that sense. So, yeah, if it's a means to an end, 4 days. So you can put out with a little bit of boredom or a little bit of frustration. This level of it's like a temperament, isn't it? Because it's 4 on 4 off, even if you was fed up 3rd day in, for instance, you've only got a day left and then you're going to be off for 4 more days. So there's something quite beautiful about that, isn't it? It's like, okay, so if you've got plenty of time off after. So every time it's getting heavy, you've got a big period of time off. So I think that's something beautiful. But because it's 4 on 4 off, you can't guarantee the weekends and all sorts of things, That's the only downside. But again, that's part of really why the wages are high. But right now, I don't mind that. It's more like if I had a family life, for instance, and there's a routine to follow. It's like then I would want the weekends off, but I don't really have that, and I'm sick and tired of trying to build the perfect scenario when really my lifestyle doesn't need it at this moment in time. So it's a bit more flexible now to provide me opportunity. Anyway, I don't want to keep rambling. I just really want, like I said at the beginning, it's just all about really just me being transparent about what might come, what might not. And just showing that obviously, like I say, things can change on a dime. It can literally change in a moment. I was never going to struggle for year after year after year. The struggle only extends to how long I'm prepared to struggle, and then where the opportunities. So, for instance, it could be like, let's say it's May, and you're thinking, right, I've had enough now. I'm going to go and do this, and then there's no jobs available. It's outside of your control, then, isn't it? You're available, but there's nothing there. There's nothing I can do about it. But then when there's a period when there is something there, and you're looking, snap. So that's really where we're up to. like I say, it's in my control. I'm quite good like that. I'm quite good to interview. When it comes to interviews, I usually do quite well with interviews. My resume CV is pretty good. I tend to get majority of opportunities if I put myself forward. Not every opportunity. I think for various reasons. Sometimes you can be overqualified. Like let's say it's a basic warehouse role and you've got all the forklifts. They might think you're too qualified. I also think there's a situation with your name. I think if there's a foreign recruiter, for instance, I think sometimes they just want foreigners. And I just think I do think there's a bias there. And I think that goes both ways. There might be someone that only wants British people, which, this shouldn't be a thing at all. But I think that's what happens sometimes. So if your name doesn't sound foreign, you don't get it. But then that goes the other way for them sometimes. And it's not really fair. That shouldn't be happening. But yeah, I think that's something. But for the most part, yeah, I do quite well. So I don't really worry in that regard, And I would say this, and leaving this comment, this moment, is some people can be quite self-defeating. So, for instance, if you see a job opportunity and you look at the pay, but you think, oh, the pay's too high, I would never get that. It's like, don't be quick to put yourself down. When I got the job that I left eventually, I was there about a year and a half, and it was a really well-paying job. It had been the best I'd had in a long time. Now, I've worked on a dock support. That's why I say like one of the best. I think realistically, and that was like back in 20 years ago, nearly, maybe 20 years ago now, that job. I'm 42, so I think I was in my early mid 20s. I think I was about 22, 23. I can't remember the exact age, but that job was really well paid. The overtime was crazy. I can't remember the exact hourly rate, but I'm pretty sure it was more than the one, and that was back then. I can't be sure though, but I'm pretty sure that was my highest paying job. And then the one I had like one I left a year and a half ago, that was if it was either the highest paying or the second highest paying job I've had. Really, really good overtime. It was double time overtime, but they started trying to cut that down. Anyway, I'm not going to go here or no there, but what I wanted to get to the point there is you could look at a job and think, I'm never going to get it, so I'm not bothering. Like I put the application in for that one at the time, and I was still applying for other jobs around it, but that was the highest paying one of all of them in the area. And I was like, I'm not going to get that one, but I'll put it in because, if anyone's got a chance, why won't I? And I'm pretty confident, even though it didn't work out ultimately in the end because there were so many changes and things were just not really what they were sold to us as. And again, with me, it's all principle. It's not. I can't keep myself miserable for money. I can't do it. The others stayed. I was the one that left ultimately. After a long period, I just went, I can't do it anymore. But I'm pretty sure. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best one there, although I was pretty good with the forklift. And I feel like I was underappreciated, to be totally honest, taken for granted. Some people do that. Some people like to keep it small as well on purpose. So there was clashes. But I'm pretty sure I was the first person to be offered the opportunity. So they're only hiring 5 people, I think it was. There's 5 of us that started. 5 people, whole application process. It was the highest paying job in the area. Big company, like really prestigious company. And I'm pretty sure I was the first one because there was little things. Like, for instance, when I actually got the phone call offering me the job at the end, like we had to cover little phases, but after the manager said, I've just come out of the meeting and this is what we've been offered. Like I've been given the allowance to offer this, like the salary, and I accepted it, but I should have negotiated because it was in between. I think it was £26,000 to £28,000 a year. Or something like, I can't remember if it was that, but either way, he chose the lower number, and then it was like a year later we had a wage increase. But I should have pushed it because ultimately everybody else got told the wages, but they were told it just directly. So I'm thinking, you said you come out of a meeting with me though, so am I the first person you called, right? Then when we looking upon someone mentioned it to me that your employee number is the first one. I think it wasn't none of the people I'm working with; it was more like an admin. Said yours is the first number of all the employee numbers, which would then suggest again that my name was first. So, and also when we'd had the walk around before I was offered the role, he really wanted to talk to me. So everybody else had left. I was been chatting to a couple of people I just met there. Really, I can be quite chatty. And then when I was leaving, he was like, "So what do you think? What do you think?" he was really impressed, like, to get my opinion on it. So anyway, not all this to gloat. I really just want to show people that if you go for something, you never know how it'll work out. I could have, my computer screen's gone mental. I could have got intimidated by it and not proceeded with my application. I could have thought, I'm never going to get this. Little did I know, I potentially was the first choice. And it's all because I applied for it. And that goes for everything we do. So, for instance, like I say, this other job, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. If it does, it's a good salary in the industry, for warehouse logistics, nearly £35,000 a year. That's good. And literally, that just come from them approaching me this time because, about a month ago, it was just going back and forward, but not getting anywhere. It's like, effectively, they've got other sites and they were interested in me. They gave me options of shifts and things. And then I saw that a new position had come up closer to me in a different warehouse because they've got different buildings. And then they said, okay, they'll talk to them and get them to call. But there's a crossover, some weird crossover. People didn't, I don't know if they called from a mobile number or they didn't call at all, but either way. And then I think between me and this person, I think we just got fed up, keep saying, because we weren't getting anywhere, Realistically, I should have just took the opportunity then rather than try and get the one closer. So effectively, the role is at the original site, which is a little bit further away, but it allows me to listen to some music on the way to work if I get the role. If I don't get the role, there's a couple of other jobs I applied for. Some actually one I think was similar wage. Another one, maybe it's going to be less. And I think you just keep your options open, But if you don't apply for something or you don't push yourself, you'll never know what you're capable of. And effectively, someone else will get that opportunity that maybe you'd have been perfect for. So always strive to get your value. I've noticed in general, people that pay you the least treat you the worst, for the most part. So if you're on the bare minimum, you'll get treated like you're nothing. You're disposable. So they'd expect you just to work like a slog, like a machine, like a robot. They got no, not everywhere, but for the majority of them, I think it's not the best environment. The more they pay you, the more respect you have. So realistically, if you want respect, put yourself in higher places, put yourself forward, allow yourself to be vulnerable, and don't feel intimidated by it either. You're actually going to feel a little bit anxious because it's a big opportunity. But ultimately, you've got to realize if someone's calling you, for instance, it's because they've seen something in you already that they want to hear from you. So I'm quite comfortable in interviews and things because I'm just myself. I'm always like that. I'm not trying to sell myself. If anything, I'm just trying to get a vibe off the other person to find out what this role's like because I'm looking to see if I'm going to be happy just as much as whether they're going to be happy. I don't want to go somewhere I'm miserable. So I'm just like, what is this person like? Are you going to be the person I'm working for? And then I'm trying to suss out their character. Is it someone I can trust? Is it someone with an agenda? Are they going to be good to work for? Little things like that. And of course, then you've got all the other things around it. What's the pay? What's the hours? Policy on this? But like I say, if you don't push yourself, you'll miss out on opportunities that someone else gets. And it's a similar attitude I had when I first started driving. My attitude was, I needed to start driving, so it was one of the further things I did because I noticed other people driving, and I don't want to be rude, but there's some people in society you'd think they might struggle to open a tin of beans, and they're driving a car. So if they can drive a car, I can drive a car. And that's my attitude with a lot of things. It's like, you know what, if someone's doing it, there's no reason I can't learn to do it either. So if someone's applying for that role, there's no reason I shouldn't be applying for that role. Doesn't mean you get it, and there's going to be people get told no all the time. And of course, if someone's hiring for multiple positions, you've got more chance. It's like the lottery, the odds are in your favor because you've got more opportunities. If someone's hiring just one person, then it's a lot harder, isn't it? Even then, sometimes I do quite well. So like I said, the hardship I'm in is my own doing. There was opportunities I had maybe 3 months ago or something, one person at one. So I'll be transparent here. I was offered a role for £29,000 a year. Considering I'm struggling like shit, that would have been ideal. I felt the hours were a bit long based on that. So when I did the calculations, the wages on the high and it was annual salary, it sounds good. But when I did the calculations for the hourly rate, it was actually quite low. I thought that's interesting because if you offer overtime in any way, that's not even going to that's not going to be much at all. That's not really valuing me either. Like I didn't really feel comfortable with that. And you had to have a hairnet on your head because it was to deal with like manufacturing chemicals. And because I had stubble and a beard, they make you put it on your face as well. And I think nah, I can't deal with that all day. You know, so there were extenuating circumstances. There was other things as well. It was a bit of a mess to set up. So money wise, yeah, it would have been good. But I always say this. I always hold out for the offer I want. And when I got the job at the other place, this is the thing with me. Like I will turn jobs down, and people will think I'm absolutely crazy. But believe me, it always works out. And I think it's just because you hold yourself to a high standards. You'll only allow things to meet you at that standard, you know? So like I said, that's this role. So let's say I turn that one down for £29,000. And then let's say this one does work out. All of a sudden, it's 4 on 4 off rather than Monday to Friday. So you only get 2 days off. The hours were long anyway. So he wasn't getting that much during the week off. So he's going to be tired. And then you're only getting 2 days off. And you're on 29 grand a year. Yeah, 29 grand a year. On the other side of this, okay, you might have to work weekends and they'll overlap sometimes and all sorts, but every 4 days you're off for 4 days, and you're not on 29. It's not £29,000 a year; it's £35,000 a year, and that goes the same way. Another opportunity come. So before I took this other job a year, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I can't remember. Anyway, I left in 2020, the end of 2023, and I can't remember when we started, but at that point, a couple of months before that job, I was offered somewhere else. I went to an interview. I had 2 managers fighting over me, different departments, both different ends of the business. Because because the HR lady said, because they were really excited talking to me, because you can get vibe off people, you know. And then the HR lady, when they called me, they said they'd love to offer you the position. In fact, they're both fighting over you, who gets you. And I thought, that's nice. But again, that was 12-hour shifts back then. It wasn't very high wages. I was like, oh, I don't think it's going to work. Like, nice. So I do let people down sometimes, and I have to, you know. And that was risky at the time because I was struggling for money again then. But I believe in myself, you know. And then a couple of months later, a month or so later, I finally get a call from that one I applied for as well. But it was just took longer for that one to happen. You think that was long forgotten. I didn't get it. I didn't hear anything. All of a sudden, you get a call. And then within a set period, you're now being hired. And it turns out, potentially, you was their first choice. Well, that's nice because I was first choice at that one as well. And also that one I turned down recently, I was first choice because I was only hiring one person. So, again, I'm not doing all this to boast. I'm just showing people, I think when you believe in yourself, it's like anything's possible, you know? But it's about like valuing yourself. So I'm not someone that I don't deal with people's pressure. I don't agree with that. Like a lot of people think if you're struggling, just take anything. And I'm of the notion, that's up to you. Depends how much you can cope with struggling. But if you take lower than you should through desperation, which I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, like think about it. If you work Monday to Friday and you work like maybe 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock, how are you ever going to get out of that? When are you going to be able to get to an interview? So you take an opportunity that's quick, it's easy, I'll do this, I'll only do it for a little while. You find yourself 5 years' time stuck there still. Whereas if you'd just given yourself a month or 2 extra, struggling, you'd have given yourself an opportunity to reflect and check out and decide which opportunities favour you, which ones you really want, and then you can pursue it. And maybe one of them works out, and now you get to walk into that position more comfortable, more happy, with a better outlook for the future. So that's what I do, you know, but maybe on a higher scale in the sense that it's not always the lowest pay. It's not always like low paying. Although again, it's subjective. Someone that's earning like fortunes is going to think that's all terrible money anyway. But when you're at the lower end, I guess there's a huge disparity between like the figures make a huge difference on your bills, for instance, and your level of freedom after your bills, and your ability to have a holiday, your ability to treat yourself to this and have this experience, you know. So it all matters, and it's about how much the company values their staff. Really, is the way I see it too. But again, I want to go a little bit deeper there. Just the whole point of this is none of this is to boast in any way. It's to show my thought process to help other people see their value and their worth. You know, so never think you're not good enough. And there's always something you can learn to improve. So, like I said, I've got a huge background in forklifts and things, and that really goes in my favor because it's not just like written down on a sheet. It's literally the experience I have. Some people get jealous because they're always competing. I don't compete with anyone, I'm just being myself. Um, so of course, that obviously helps. Then there might be someone else that's maybe just starting out, and it's like, well, just go easy on yourself. Then just gain the experience, focus on getting the experience up, and then then opportunities will come. So, like, I relocated back in 2020. If I was still like where I used to live, then maybe I would be looking potentially go back into the docks, ports, because there's a lot of money to be made there, and it's interesting. I've had a few different jobs in there, to be honest. Some agency, some permanent, and it's always an interesting place to work. Yeah, I quite like it, to be totally honest. Very structured, organised, safe. Yeah, but again, when people compete, they don't know your background. So they see you working, they see you efficient, they can see you can do this and you're comfortable. And it's like, yeah, but you don't. You've only just started using the machines. You've only just been taught. You're trying to compare the role that we're doing now. You don't realize the background that I have in the same way other people have had their backgrounds. And it's like, you'll eventually get there, but don't have to be in competition with people. Yeah, but anyway, that never diminish yourself. Always be willing to learn is the main thing as well. That's what I think. Like most of the roles I've been to, I've always learned something new. And I think that's always a good place to be. Um, yeah. Like, for instance, I'm trying to think about like the last role I left. When I left there, weirdly enough, yeah, again, this all goes towards all that, really. Before we took on the role properly, where we was actually working, because we had to wait for stock to come into the building. It was a brand new setup. My manager chose me out of the five of us to go and join him at head office. So the others would have to go report back to the warehouse, and they'd start putting stock away. They'd just be using the forklifts. I hadn't been able to use the forklifts for about a month because I had to keep going to head office with my manager. I had to meet him there all the time. And then I'd be sitting there with other like gurus from different departments. There'll be the design team. There'll be different people from different parts. And they were putting together the warehouse management system, the computer system. And it was up to me to do some testing with it, which was quite complicated. But it's more complicated than it should have been. But it was basic in its form, which made it complicated because it wasn't intuitive at all. But yeah, even I had like ideas because I'm understanding what they want from it, and then I'm saying certain things with regards to the processes, because sometimes I think unless you're on the floor, you don't really know what you might have an idea of. You want it to do this, you want it to do that, but let's be careful. Like, let's make sure it's working properly, So we want to be able to move stock effortlessly. We don't want to make it cumbersome. But also, one of the things I was making the point was: is there a way for you to put a warning, like a second phase before something's confirmed? Because if you was to put, for instance, move this stock to this stock to this location, for instance, or removing that, and it's so easy just to keep pressing enter, all of a sudden you might move 1,000 items from that bay, and you did it by mistake because you only needed one item, but you just did it by mistake. You put too many digits in or something. All of a sudden, all that stock's now relocated, gone out of there, and you've lost track of it. But if you put like a confirm button on there, it'll make people stop and look, make sure the quantity is correct. Takes slightly less, a little more time, but these are little things I'm picking up on because I'm realizing how easy it is to mess up the whole system here. Anyway, there was things to do, so I forget about that side. I don't give myself credit for that, but I played my part in the testing phase of all that, and yeah. So warehousing isn't just like basic. You're a mule in any like there's sometimes some interesting things. Yeah. Anyway, that's part of the process for me. That was like fish out of water. Again, that was brand new to me. I didn't have a clue when I first walked in there. I thought, this is outrageous. I don't even know why I'm sitting with these people. I don't even know why I'm here. I'm good with computers. I've done a university course and all sorts of stuff, but unless you, like, these people knew what they were walking into. I knew nothing going into the room, It's like no one's telling me anything. And they're the ones that are they're already up to speed to a degree, And that's not a good place to be. You want to be the same level with everybody else. But no, I picked it up. I didn't feel intimidated being around everybody. It was quite interesting though, because they're like, everybody, like, if you just introduce yourselves around the room, and they're going, I'm from like blah blah blah. I'm from IT. I'm from HR. Or I'm from the design team. I'm from whatever the admin side. Oh, there's so many structures of everything, and there's me going, I'm sort of like my name's Steve, and I'm from the warehouse. And they were like, yeah, they were nice about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah. We need you here. Like, we need the warehouse. We need the actual user's opinion of how this is going to work. So that was nice. And it's just a different experience, really. But anyway, I don't want to digress too far, but you just got a little window there. My work history is quite varied within the logistics. I've been there, done most things. And I think it's interesting, isn't it, that we have, that's the thing I think with people in general, you get pigeonholed. If I talk a lot about that you naturally just think I'm a warehouse logistics person, you just get pigeonholed as that's what you are. And yet do little people know I have an awful lot of intelligence, my outlook on life, my ability to help people see from different perspectives and broaden their minds, which effectively it becomes a source of therapy, really. But I'm at the moment, I live two worlds. It's quite maddening, isn't it? But there's a time in the future, I guess, I'm expecting where I don't have the warehouse side anymore. Not to say I'm embarrassed by it. I don't regret it. I think it's been an interesting period of my life, and I've gained a lot of experience in it. And I think that's the thing. Some of us will live sort of like multiple lives in one life. And I think rather than see it as a negative, I think it's quite beautiful, because effectively you have a lot of experience that most people wouldn't expect. And the one thing I've always liked about warehouse, and it's the thing that attracted me the most, was how diverse the culture is. Because it's interesting to see so many different characters, different people, different backgrounds, and seeing not only how they work with each other, but how you deal with them too. And that's always been something that truly interests me. Having that connection, really, and just dealing with people. Anyway, that's me just talking about that, really. Like I said, I'm not going to keep talking about, I think, so much. Definitely money. I'm not going to talk about money so much, but I probably won't talk about, I don't know if we'll talk about career so much anymore. I think we've had enough of that. I have, anyway. Just bothers me the more I think about it, to be totally honest, because it's not about money all the time, We all want to do what we've got a passion for. And I think your gifts, I don't want to digress and I don't want to go on any further. I'm just going to, like I did in another video, when I think about it deep enough, I just don't understand why it's so hard for people to make a living off of something they're passionate about. You see it all the time with singers. It takes them years and years and years. Maybe they have to do busking, they have to put it on social media, and it's fun. Eventually they get the opportunity, but not all do, and yet that's their gift. You might be someone that's good with art and different things, all these creative capacities at least. And of course you've got other skills too. And for the most part, it falls on deaf ears and you can't make money off it. And I find that quite frustrating when you think about it, if it's a gift, it's really the thing we should be honing in on. So then why the hell is it always so hard? It's baffling.